Welcome to another Insider Special Report. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Mighty Joe, man, we're here on Tech campus. Beautiful, beautiful day for another edition of the Hoop Scoop. And unfortunately, it was bound to happen at some point. Yeah. Texas Tech had to lose again, right? I mean, they weren't going to go undefeated after, losing to Duke in New York. They were going to go undefeated through the Big 12. They did lose at home by 4 to Iowa State. Now, Iowa State's beaten both Kansas and Tech now. Yeah. So obviously they're a team to watch. But first off, how are you doing? And then what were your thoughts on the game from Wednesday night?
Doing pretty good. Fair to Midland, not too bad. As far as the game last night, like you said, it had to happen eventually. Yeah. I mean, anybody who has any realism about this situation knows that nobody is going to go sailing through the Big 12. It's just, it's a brutal conference. I mean, you've got 8 teams, the top 8 teams in this conference that can beat anybody else in the top 8 on the road even. It's that sort of a situation. 8 very good teams. So, you prefer, obviously, not to lose anything at home. Yeah. But you do. Maybe you get it out of your system. Sometimes a loss like this can actually serve a good effect of refocusing the team. Yeah. It's like, it's like some sort of an optical instrument or a microscope or a telescope that just maybe slowly begins to lose its focus. Yeah. And then it needs something to smack it around to get it back into focus again.
I like to call it a boot in the patoot.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's it, man. That's much more succinct than talking about microscopes. Yeah. So you're right. This Baylor game then could be your get right game, But that's not going to be an easy game either. Even though Baylor lost Tristan Clark, you're playing them there. In Waco, and probably the best rebounding team in the Big 12. And just for the record, Tech has been out-rebounded in all of their conference games so far. Now, it's only been by 1 or 2 in a couple of those games, but it's been 7, 8 and a few others. So that's, obviously a huge situation there with Baylor. So it's going to be an interesting game.
Joe, let me go over a couple of issues from the loss Wednesday night. And despite all these issues, they still were right there at the end. Right. There's a couple that happened where I feel like that was just, it was a bad game, and I don't feel like it's going to keep cropping up. And then there's a couple of issues that, honestly, I am concerned about moving forward, and I have been for a little bit. But it's hard to nitpick when they're winning, right? Okay, but they lost, so here we are. The free throws. I mean, obviously, you do a better job shooting free throws than I forget what the final count was, but it was abysmal. They shot as poor as they have all year, and likely as poor as hopefully for them, as poor as they probably will all year. And then, in addition to that, they missed a bunch of really easy, close, I wouldn't say uncontested, but shots that they normally make and most Big 12 schools should make, at least the majority of them, really in tight. It wasn't just Culver. There were even early. It was Moretti, Norrance, several guys that just had really good looks and just missed them. Those are 2 that honestly I don't feel like that's going to crop back up. I feel like that was kind of just an anomaly. And then one, there was a coaching error in my humble opinion. And look, I've espoused Chris Beard's greatness over and over again, and I will continue to do so, and he is human. But I'm not going to be able to understand that timeout late. When you tie it up, Culver goes down on the kind of fast break, crowd's going crazy. I mean, come on, they've done all this stuff to get the crowd crazy and loud. Beard's constantly trying to pump them up, and he calls timeout. Now, I get it, to slow down Iowa State. I get the idea there from that perspective. But honestly, what you really did was stifle your own crowd, in my opinion, and allowed basically momentum to stop there. What do you think about those 3 things?
Yeah. As far as the free throw shooting goes, I think that was a total freak occurrance because Tech had been shooting 71% before this. Now they're down to 70. That tells you how bad one game and you drop a full percent. Right. They were leading the conference in free throw shooting coming in. So I expect that to correct itself. That was kind of regression back to the mean maybe a little bit. But
didn't they have a 17 for 17 game not that long ago?
I think against Oklahoma they went 17 to 17. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. The finishing, to me, really good finishers are guys who can explode up off the floor, right? Who can elevate over people and explode through people. Sure. You're much more confident. You're not going to get your shot blocked. And, I think guys that are worried about about getting those shots blocked, you go up kind of soft and maybe you lose some of your accuracy. And I think that's a little bit of a problem there. I mean, Norrance is a guy who doesn't exactly explode off the floor.
Right.
Morrow, Mooney. Now Culver is a little bit harder to figure. But then again, he's the focus of everybody's attention. They're swarming him, mobbing him every time he gets the ball. So, but still, I think that's probably a little bit more of a concern than the free throws moving forward. As far as that timeout goes, I think you can go both ways with it. Beard was asked that a question about that in the press conference.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's what the question was about. It was about the timeout after tying the score up at 61. Right. And what Beard said was that he wanted to set up traps and pressure. Okay, and so it was a defensive timeout. Was it ill-advised? It could have been. It could have been. I mean, you can go both ways on that. There's no way we can know how it would have worked out. Maybe it would have worked. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, we have espoused Chris Beard's greatness before. We will. I mean, he's great for the program. Been amazing. That one I immediately was like, whoa, what's going on? Well, I assumed Iowa State called the timeout. And then when I found out it was Tech, I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. But hey, like I said, even Chris Beard is human apparently. A couple of things I am worried about though is, okay, on the rotation of this team, when they go small against the Big 12, they've been getting, you mentioned it, the rebounding, they've been out-rebounded every game in conference. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some advantages with that lineup, obviously. And Chris Beard, like I said, obviously knows what he's doing, and the coaching staff. And I don't know what the fix is to that, other than playing on Digo, or if Kayvon Moore, which we'll get to here in a minute, or if he can step up and kind of provide you some more size. But that small lineup, I mean, Big 12 teams are obviously prepared for Tech to go to that small lineup and attacking them, both by going inside and then also by hitting the offensive boards. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you got to rebound better with your small lineup on the floor because, it's just kind of a trend in basketball. It's like everybody likes to play a lot of small ball, and so I think teams are matching up probably with Tech when they go small, but then they're out rebounding them with their small guys. Yeah. So you got to rebound better when you got your small group out there. And, I think where this really, really is hurting them is on the offensive end. It would be so nice if you could get some more offensive rebounds because you get more offensive rebounds, you get more cracks at the bucket. And Tech right now, I mean, they're struggling to score something. They have scored anywhere from, I believe, 62 to 68, remarkably consistent in all of their conference games so far. If you could bump that number up, where you're at least getting into the low 70s from time to time, and your offensive rebounding really can help you in that area. You can commit more guys to crashing the glass. When you do that, you're more vulnerable to fast breaks going back the other direction. But, if this becomes more of an issue, then that's something you got to look at. So, that's the way I see it, particularly on the offensive glass. I just like to see them doing a better job there.
That being said, I brought up all these negatives. Texas Tech is 15-2. Overall, 14-1 4-1, in conference, tied with Kansas atop the Big 12 standings. So things are still looking bright for them. What do you mentioned Baylor? What's going to be the key in that game into getting the win in Waco?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another kind of beard ball kind of a game, and it seems like all Tech games are, and at least in conference play. And that's what Tech wants.
Absolutely.
Tech wants it dirty and ugly and grind it out, and that's what they're getting. And they've been on the right side of these things 4 times and on the wrong side 1 time. But the point is, I mean, Tech is controlling the tempo of these games pretty much the way they want, and they're getting the style of play that they want. It's just a matter of finishing it out. And the thing is, Baylor is going to comply in this regard because that's the way they like it too. So it's going to be really another knockdown, drag out. Baylor lost Tristan Clark for the year, who was
that's tough.
Yeah, it was, and he's a good rebounder, but also an offensive option for them as well. And that's the Baylor struggles to score a little bit, so that's a big loss for them. And I don't think they're going to be able to put up any kind of big numbers against Texas Tech. But again, as per usual, where does Tech come out on the offensive end? Tech is going to. Does Tech get into the 60s on this one? If they get into the mid-60s, they probably win this game. And I don't think they're going to get a lot of offensive boards against Baylor either.
Yeah.
So that's probably not going to be much of a factor. So what that means is on the glass, you got to do it on the defensive glass.
Yeah.
That's where your focus has got to be. If you can shut Baylor out and not allow them to get offensive rebounds, that's just going to cut into their scoring even more. And they're not a huge scoring team as it is. So you're probably in pretty good shape there. They got a transfer from Yale named Makai Mason, who's a really nifty little guard who can get to the hoop, and he's creative and he can finish. He's what you call a volume shooter, a gunner, you know, whatever you want to call it, but he's going to definitely challenge Tech's guards. So they're going to have to play some pretty good on the ball defense and help out on him a little bit. Other than that, I don't think Baylor has a whole lot of options to surround Mason, so he's not going to kick it out, and probably Baylor's not going to burn you from deep, although they did have a big game recently against somebody where they knocked down a whole bunch of three-pointers. So these weird things can happen, but you don't count on weird things happening. So, you know, I think Tech is probably going to win this game, but again, I think it's going to be another nail-biter, and it's going to be pretty tough.
All right, hey, Joe, great stuff from you as always. Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.